Hey everybody, Peyton Malone here, back in the kitchen now on, I believe, our third cooking video of desserts, and I'm really excited about this recipe. Earlier this week I had asked on social media what I should make this time around. I know we're all stuck at home, and my sister actually commented and said, how about a Texas sheet cake? And I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect. It's easy, it's fast, and it makes a lot. This recipe I'm using, it does go back in the family. It's my mammer. She was my great-grandmother. She's passed for quite some time now, but she used to always make this sheet cake for family gatherings, maybe for some holidays, things like that. So it's definitely going to bring back a lot of memories for me. But it is an easy recipe, it is quick, and it makes a lot. So it is a perfect recipe if you're stuck at home or if you've got a lot of people to feed. But I do hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy the video. So before you get started on the stove top, you actually need to go ahead and preheat your oven because this recipe moves very quickly. Go ahead and preheat it to 350 degrees. We'll get to that in a little bit. First, we need to make our wet ingredients, and you do have to use a stove top for this because you need to melt down whether you're using butter or shortening. I'm using 1 cup of shortening or Crisco, which is just 1 stick. So remember, 1 stick of butter equals half a cup, 1 stick of Crisco equals 1 full cup. So you will need that. Go ahead and turn your oven on medium high to heat will work for that. Then you're gonna add in 1 cup of water to this mixture. And then along with that, this is where the chocolatey part comes in. You're gonna add in 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, unsweetened. And then put all that in the bowl, and then you're just gonna melt it down and incorporate it all together. And then we're eventually gonna add this all to our other wet ingredients, and then eventually to our dry ingredients. So once it's completed and once it's melted and starts to boil, you can pull it off the burner, turn it off, and let it cool because we're eventually gonna use this, but we do need it to cool before we pour it into our other wet and dry ingredients. Now that your wet mixture of your cocoa and your oil is cooling down, we can go ahead and put our dry ingredients together, and this part's pretty easy as well. So just start with 2 cups of flour, and remember, by scale, 120 grams per cup, so 240 grams of flour is how much we need for this recipe. Go ahead and pour that in. And then you're also gonna add in 2 cups of regular white granulated sugar, and then 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Also, go ahead and throw in some 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now, I've looked at a lot of recipes and I haven't seen any that call for cinnamon, but my great-grandmother's did, so we're gonna go ahead and use it. Not sure how much it's gonna add to the flavor, but can't go wrong with cinnamon, right? So go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then you can mix all this together, and this is gonna be our dry ingredients. Now, we're eventually going to add some eggs, some buttermilk, some vanilla, and then we'll also add that chocolatey oily mixture that we made on the stove. Now for the other wet ingredients, we're gonna use buttermilk. We have half a cup of buttermilk and also 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I usually just add the vanilla to the buttermilk before I add it to the dry ingredients. And then we also have our 2 eggs that we're gonna use for this. So go ahead and you can go ahead and add your 2 large eggs to the flour and sugar mixture. And you can also add in that buttermilk and vanilla as well. Ooh. So once you get that in there, give it a little bit of a stir. This is gonna be really doughy though, so you don't wanna mix it too much. Now, the chocolate mixture has been cooling for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's not cold or it's not room temperature, but it's certainly not boiling hot like it was. So we're gonna go ahead and add the rest of this chocolate mixture into the rest of this mixture. Now you don't want it to be too hot because what'll happen is it'll scramble your eggs, and you don't want scrambled eggs in your dessert. It's just awful. So go ahead, let this cool, and then you slowly add this over to the top. You get all the chocolate out. There's gonna be some on the sides with the oil. And then when it's in there, then you can mix this up, and you just mix it until it's all together. It's probably gonna take a couple of minutes. And of course you can use an electric mixer, you can even use your KitchenAid. But for this one I wanted to use, just whisk it in there. Okay, we've got our sheet pan here now that we are going to spray on non-stick so the cake does not stick anywhere. And then once you get that on there, then you get your dough or your batter. I keep calling it dough. You just pour it in, let it fill it up. It'll spread on out. You may have to get a shake or two to kind of let it even out. By the way, the sheet pan's about, an inch high, maybe 3/4 of an inch high. And then once it's settled out like that, we can throw it into the oven. So you've got your preheated oven, of course. You just want to throw it onto the top rack and cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes. Now, you're just gonna have to keep an eye on it, and then you'll do that toothpick test as you get a little bit closer to the end. Okay, when your cake's got about 10 minutes left in the oven, we need to make the icing. And by the way, the icing is the best part of the entire sheet cake. So start with 1 stick of butter, that's 1/2 cup of butter. And we're gonna melt that down with more cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of, to be exact. And then also you wanna add in 1/3 teaspoon, or 1 teaspoon rather of vanilla. And then we're also gonna add in a little bit of buttermilk as well. We're gonna do 1/3 a cup of buttermilk. And let that all come together, and then you're gonna mix it up and let it melt, and then we're gonna add in a few other things. Oh, before I forget, by the way, just a pinch of salt. Salt's always good in a sweet icing. It helps level it off. All right, once the butter's all melted in and you get it all kind of nearly to a boil, go ahead and turn your heat down. And now we're gonna add the powdered sugar. Now there's 3.5 cups of powdered sugar. And remember, this is sifted, which is about 450 grams of the powdered sugar. So add a little bit, stir it in, and then add a little bit more. It'll take a second for this to get all in there. And if you add it all in at once, you're probably gonna make a big old mess. All right, once you get it mixed in, then you can turn off your heat, and we're gonna add one final thing, and this is totally optional, but to me, it's what makes it the better Texas sheet cake. It's when you add some nuts to it. I prefer pecans on mine, so add 1/2 cup of pecans to the icing itself. And then we actually have another 1/2 cup of pecans that we're gonna add once we put this on top of the cake. All right, you can let this sit here, cool down just a little bit. You don't want this to get cold because we need it to still be warm when we add it to the top of the sheet cake, and the sheet cake's gonna be warm as well. After 30 to 35 minutes or so, you get a gorgeous dark sheet cake. No chocolate on top yet, and ignore my finger, my thumb from the mitt went into the cake here. But now that we've got the cake out, we're still gonna put the icing on it when it's warm. That's something very different about the sheet cake is we've got our icing, it's cooled down just a little bit, but now we're going to put it on top of it and then let it sit there, and that's when it'll really cool down, and then we'll have to wait for it to get completely cool before we try a slice of it in a little bit. So go ahead and add your icing down the middle. Try to be as even as possible. It just makes spreading it a little bit more easier when you have to spread it out. And then that's it. We let it cool completely. It'll probably take 30 minutes to an hour or so for it to completely cool down, and then we can try it out. All right, now the cake has been cooling for about an hour or so. I've cut a piece. It's pretty. There's one thing I would change about this recipe, or maybe tweak what I did. It's add a little bit more of that powdered sugar when we were making the icing, because I think it was too thin and it kind of seeped into the cake, which kind of gave the appearance that there wasn't much icing on top. So maybe a little bit more powdered sugar, and it would just kind of lay there on top. But other than that, it is delicious. I tried a piece earlier, and at the beginning, we added a little bit of that cinnamon, remember? And I said, I don't know why. There's not many recipes call for this, but hers did. That is what made this that taste that I remember. I tasted it, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I can kind of taste that cinnamon. And to me, that is one of the memories of eating this cake way back in the day. So it brought back all those memories of running around with the cousins and everyone at the Christmas party from all across the family. And this was, 15, 20 years ago. So a lot of memories associated with this cake. I hope you make it, and I hope you can enjoy it as well. It does make quite a bit, and remember, it's just me right now, social distancing, so I've got to take care of this. By the way, I'm going to be doing this nostalgic theme over the next couple of weeks where I make these desserts that remind me of maybe my childhood, what we used to always eat at these family get-togethers, and my next one is actually going to be kind of a tribute, I guess, to my grandmother. She recently passed away at the end of 2019, and she used to always make a buttermilk pie. So I'm going to be doing buttermilk pie. Of course, everyone has their own recipe for that. I'm going to see if I can get her recipe. I'm not even sure if she had one or if she just kind of winged it. But anyways, I hope you will join me for that, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you would like the full recipe for this, it will be in the comments below. So go check it out, and let me know if you do make it. Send me pictures of it so I can see how yours turned out. Thanks everyone so much for watching once again, and I hope you're staying healthy and safe.